everyone. Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we will walk through IRS Form 941, the employer's quarterly federal tax return. Whether you're a business owner, payroll professional, or just learning about payroll tax compliance, this guide will help you understand what Form 941 is, who must file it, and how to complete it accurately. So, let's get started. First of all, what is Form 941? Form 941, Employer's Quarterly Federal Tax Return, is a tax form that employers use to report payroll taxes to the IRS. This form will be completed by employer and submitted by employer on behalf of the employee's salary paid by him. Think of Form 941 as the IRS way of checking whether an employer has paid employees correctly, withheld the correct taxes from employee paychecks, contributed the employer portion of payroll taxes, deposited those taxes with the IRS on time or not. Without Form 941, the IRS would have no quarterly record of an employer's payroll tax activity. Why does the IRS require Form 941? So when an employer receives a paycheck, the employer does not simply pay the employee's gross wages. The employer must withhold certain taxes from the employee's earning and also contribute some taxes on behalf of the employee. For an example, if an employee earns 5,000 in a month, so the taxes deducted from his gross salary would be federal income tax, social security of employer part plus employee part, and Medicare tax employee plus employer part. And on the fourth point, it is mentioned the employer must also pay its own share of social security and Medicare. Previously, we have discussed in the videos that social security will be charged 6.2% up to a certain limit, and also for Medicare it will be deducted up to a certain limit, and after that limit only employee has to pay 0.9% on the gross salary. So the IRS uses Form 941 to verify that these taxes are being reported and paid correctly. Some of the taxes, like I had mentioned, federal income tax, social security, Medicare. So in addition to that, the common taxes are SUTA and FUTA as well, state unemployment insurance and FUTA unemployment as well. Now, who must file Form 941? Most businesses that have employees and withhold federal taxes from paychecks must file Form 941. For example, small businesses, corporations, partnerships, non-profit organizations. Even if no tax is due for a quarter, employers may still need to file. So let's explain this. I'll explain this. So suppose you have done the payroll registration in a state. You hired one employee as well. That's why you done the payroll registration. Now for the first month, you have paid to that employee, and later on that employee resigned. So in the second quarter, you have no employee. You haven't revoked your payroll registration in the state as well. So in that case, you have to file the 941 return with zero amount. It is mandatory to file, otherwise you have to pay the penalties later on. If you don't have any employee in the state in second quarter, and you will revoke the payroll registration as well with the department, so you don't have to file anything. But if you haven't cancelled your payroll registration, in that case you have to file the 941 zero amount in 941 form. So information reported on Form 941. First of all, number of employees reports the number of employees who received wages during the pay period. Second one, the total wages paid, which include salaries, hourly wages, bonuses, tips, and other compensation. Third one is payroll income tax withheld. These points are the number which I have mentioned here. Yes, here you can see I have attached the separate screenshots that on which box number which detail should be posted. That I'll explain further as well, but this is the summary of those points. So third one was federal income tax withheld, shows the federal income tax withheld from employee paychecks. Now the fourth point is social security tax. It reports tax withheld from employees, employer matching contribution as well. Current social security tax rate is 6.2% for employee and 6.2% for employer, and the total of that is 12.4% will be deducted as social security from an employee's gross wages. Same for the Medicare tax reports, employee Medicare tax and employer Medicare tax. The percentage of the tax is 1.45% each. The total tax percentage is 2.9%. Sixth one is additional Medicare tax. Employers must withhold an extra 0.9% Medicare tax from employees whose wages exceed the IRS threshold. So, now moving on to the actual form, that how to fill that. In the beginning of the form, you just have to update the employer's information, and you have to check on the quarter for which you are doing the filing, first, second, third, fourth. Remember, in payroll, calendar year will be followed. Okay, going on to the part 1 of 941 form. So on line 1 or box 1, you have to input the number of employees who received wages during the pay period each calendar quarter, excluding independent contractors and pension recipients. On line 2, wages, tips and other compensation paid during the quarter, which includes salaries, hourly wages, bonuses, commission, tips, vacation pay. Line 3, federal income tax from employees' paychecks withheld by employer during the respective quarter. On line 4, if no wages subject to Social Security or Medicare tax, check this box. Fourth one, if the wages are 0 for the quarter. Now on the next slide, I have attached the screenshot again for the points which I have mentioned in this slide. So on line 5A, you have to mention taxable social security wages, which is total 12.4%, which includes the employee and employer share of 6.2% each. Line B, taxable social security tips. In this box, you have to enter tips subject to social security tax, the same percentage as mentioned in the 5A line. Line 5C, taxable Medicare wages and tips. Total percentage is 2.9%, which includes the employee and employer share of 1.45% each. Moving on to line 5D, additional Medicare tax. If the threshold is met and the wages of an employee crosses the decided limit of wages, then this 0.9% on the excess wages will be deducted, and this will be contributed by employer, or can say employer will not contribute anything for the extra withholding of that 0.9%. Only employee will pay that. Here you can see the screenshot of those points as well, which I have explained above. Moving on to next point, line 6, total taxes before adjustment. Here you have to mention federal income tax withheld, which was mentioned on line 3, plus social security tax plus Medicare tax. As mentioned in the previous slide, you have to add in line 6 the line 3, this one, and this line 5A, 5B, 5C, 5D and 5E. Now moving on to line 7, adjustment for fractions of cents, rounding differences in social security and Medicare taxes. So sometimes you will find some difference. What you have calculated could be different from the amount reported in the 941, and that difference will be around 5 cents, 7 cents or 1 or 2 cents. This will be nominal, so that you have to mention in line 7. In line 8, adjustment for sick pay when a third party such as insurance company pays sick pay to your employees and withhold social security, Medicare and federal income taxes on your behalf. On line 9, adjustment for group term life insurance. When an employer receives taxable group term life insurance coverage, the value of that benefit may be subject to social security and Medicare tax if the employer cannot collect the employee's share of those taxes. On line 10, total taxes after adjustment. So they have to you have to calculate line 6 plus all the adjustments. So in line 6 you have total out the line 3 and line 5a b c d e. Now 6 is your final box which you have to look over. After that on line 10 you have to total out the 6 7 8 9 all the rows. Now 10th row is your final amount. This is not final yet because we are moving forward on to the next slide where I have mentioned more line items. So line 11, tax credits used by eligible small businesses to claim the payroll tax portion of the research and development tax credit. The credit is first calculated on form 8974 and then reported on line 11A to reduce the employer's payroll taxes. This is a complicated one because on line 11, so if you're doing some research, in your business, so against that research, whatever you have spent for contractors, for products, for everything, that will be subject to get credit. But there are many limitations which we can discuss further in another video which I'll prepare. But currently whatever you will spend on R&D, searching on new product, so that you can further send to your accountant and you have to get it studied and then you will get some credit, and that credit will be mentioned on 8974. that all the calculation will be mentioned in the 8974 form. Once you will get that form, you have to mention the credit amount in this line 12, line 11. So that is a separate case about R&D tax and credit which will be used. I have used that in many clients who has taken the R&D credit, but here I can't give you much example because it's a vast subject which can be discussed in separate video. Moving on to line 12, total tax after credits. Line 12 shows your total payroll tax liability after applying adjustments and eligible non-refundable credits. How it is calculated? Subtract line 11 from line 10. So till line 10 I had mentioned that this should be considered final amount. Now on the 11th line, in the 11th line you have to mention the R&D credit. That credit will be adjusted against the line 10 and then you will mention the next amount in line 12 which will be considered final till line 12. Now moving on to line 13, total deposit. Line 13 reports the total amount already paid towards your payroll tax liability during the quarter. Whatever amount you have paid, for example, if you're making the payment on bi-weekly basis or monthly basis for 941, so you are paying that on EFTPS websites, and whatever amount you have paid in a quarter, that will be mentioned on line 13. And line 13 will be compared with line 12, because line 13 whatever you have paid, line 12 will show what should have been paid. If you have paid extra, then you will get the overpayment refund, or if you have underpaid, then the balance will show in the line 14, which is balance due. In the line 14 you will get the balance due. In line 15, if you have made any overpayment, then you have to mention that overpayment amount will be shown in the line 15A. If there is any overpayment, then you have to check on one of the options from line B, 15B. Either you want to apply that to next return, or you want to send a refund by IRS to you. Sorry. If you want a refund, then you have to mention the bank details as mentioned in 15C, 15D, 15E. Part 2. Previously we were discussing about part 1. Now part 2. The deposit schedule. Part 2 is used to tell the IRS how often you deposit payroll taxes and to report your tax liability by month or by day. Monthly versus semi-weekly rule. Your deposit schedule is generally based on the look back period. If reported taxes during the look back period were 50,000 or less, you are generally a monthly depositor. For example, if look back period refers to the previous four quarters, so if in 4 quarters 50,000 or less taxes have been paid, then you have to file the 941 you have to pay the 941 payment on monthly basis. You are falling in monthly depositor category. But if you have paid more than 50,000 in last 4 quarters in the look back period, so you are generally a semi weekly depositor, or whenever you are processing your payroll, you have to pay the 941 at that time, instead of waiting that you will pay the 941 payment at the month end. So $1 lakh next day deposit rule. If you have paid $1 lakh in the last 4 quarters or look back period, then you have to pay the 941 payments immediately next day when you have processed the payroll. If you discuss about $1 lakh next day deposit rule. If you accumulate $1 lakh or more in payroll tax liability or on any day during a deposit period, you must generally deposit by next business day and become a semi-weekly depositor. The look back period is 12-month period, 4 quarters, last 4 quarters. Here is the screenshot of part 2 for your reference. Part 3. Part 3 is business information. So in line 17, you will mention if your business has closed or you stopped paying wages. So you have to fill out this line 17. You close the business or you stop paying wages and do not expect to file future 941 forms. You must enter the date of final wages were paid and indicate that this is your final return. On line 18, if you are seasonal employer, so for example, you are living in Alaska and your business you can do the business only 6 months due to weather conditions. So on line 18, check this box if you do not have to file 941 form every quarter because you only pay wages during certain seasons. If checked, the IRS knows not to expect a form 941 for every quarter. On part 4, it allows an employer to authorize another person such as CPA, accountant, bookkeeper or payroll provider to discuss the form 941 with the IRS. So sometimes you found some glitch in the 941 form, or you're not agree with the 941 form, whatever information mentioned into 941, you are not agree with that, or you have received any notice that you have underpaid or you have overpaid. For any reason, if you have received a notice from IRS for related to 941, so either you can reach out to the IRS department to discuss the matter, or you will allow a CPA to talk on your behalf and solve the issue. So part 4 is related to that, where employer authorize another person such as CPA, accountant, bookkeeper or payroll provider to discuss the form 941 with the IRS. If you select yes, you must provide designee name, phone number and a 5-digit PIN. This 5-digit PIN number could be 1 2 3 4 5 5 4 6 2 9, whatever you can mention. It's up to you. With this authorization, the designee can answer IRS questions, provide additional informations and discuss the processing of the return. The authorization applies only to that specific form 941 and does not allow the designee to sign the return, receive refunds or legally represent the employer before the IRS. If you do not want anyone else to discuss the return with the IRS, select no and leave the remaining fields blank. Example: if a CPA prepares your form 941 and you want the IRS to speak directly with them about the return, check yes and enter the CPA's details and a 5-digit PIN. Part 5, sign here. Part 5 is where the employer certifies that the information on 941 form is accurate and complete and officially sign the return. The following information is required: signature of the employer or authorized person, Printed name and title, example owner, president, treasurer, partner. Date signed, best daytime, phone number as well. Who can sign Form 941? Depending on the business structure, in the sole proprietorship business type or business entity, owner can sign. In corporation, president, vice president, or other authorized officer. In partnership, partner or authorized member. In LLC, authorized member or manager. In government entity, authorized official. By signing, the signer declares under penalty of perjury that the return is true, correct, and complete to the best of their knowledge. Important. Form 941 is not considered filed until it is properly signed, unless electronically filed using an approved e-file method. This action serves as the employer's official certification of the return. So, at the end, documents needed before filing Form 941. So, what documents are required to file the 941 form? Payroll register, employee wage reports, federal tax withholding reports, social security and Medicare tax calculations, payroll tax deposit records, EIN information, quarterly payroll summary. Simple formula for 941 is total tax due is equal to federal income tax withheld plus employer and employee social security wages plus employer and employee Medicare taxes minus credit. This is the core calculation that 941 form is built around. So that was all, and thank you for watching this video. We hope this overview of Form 941 has helped you better understand your quarterly payroll tax filing responsibilities. And if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more tax and payroll compliance content. And I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye. Thank you.